We love your questions. We are, I know a lot of people say we're here for you. We are here for you. So if you have questions, send us an email, hit us up on social media. We will absolutely answer your questions to the best of our ability.
I love answering questions, video related questions, lighting, camera. Honestly, it's fun to be able to answer these questions and know that you're helping somebody kind of step up their game a little. Get comfortable asking people questions, because if you don't know, we might have the answers.
Send us an email, thevisuallounge@techsmith.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter. You can hit up the @TechSmith handle, or you can reach out to any of us on LinkedIn. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Visual Lounge. We're so glad you're with us. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening, we're so happy that you're here. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We've talked a lot about a lot of different topics over the last couple of months, but today we're going to be answering questions. We found some of the common questions that we've got out there. People have asked us, and we want to make sure we're digging into some of those to make sure we're answering some of those questions, but also hopefully sparking the imagination, get you guys thinking about things that you could be doing. So Justin, Andy, welcome. Glad you're here today. We're going to dive into these questions kind of fast and furious here because we got a lot of potential things we can cover. We're going to go deep. I would recommend, if you're listening to the podcast, there may be a few things throughout the episode that are really visual. We'd recommend you can go watch those on YouTube. We'll try to describe what's going on, but just so you know, you can prepare yourself if you want to go check those out later. Okay, question number 1, guys. I want to make a similar video with white background. What is your advice? A green screen or a white screen? So let's show what we're talking about here so we know kind of from a reference standpoint. You got a individual, we got Guy here. That's his name. He's a guy, but he's Guy. They got this white screen, kind of nice lighting on him, nice lighting behind him. So they want to make something similar. The question, I think there's 2 questions, or first question is green screen or white screen?
I think the answer is no screen, right, Andy?
No, not at all. I would actually definitely go for it. I mean, okay, so Justin's leaning away from the screen completely. Is that what you're saying? I'm saying
how that one was done. How that one was done is what I'm saying.
No, I know how that one was done. That was definitely a screen. But it was you say screen, it was a roll of paper. Either way, whether it was green or white, it was a roll of paper. You're right, yes. So and I can get to that too as a separate topic. But I like the natural white as opposed to faking it with green. Couple pluses and minuses though. If you have white and you light it up, as you can see with Guys when it was on screen, it kind of tinges the sides a little bit because the lights are gonna show up right in the center. But then if you don't evenly light it like you would need to do with a green screen, the light kind of dims as it goes to the side, creating a natural gradient. On white, that's fine. I mean, it's kind of grayish looking almost. If you do that with a green screen, you're going to have lighting problems and keying problems, and then it's not going to be a very easy thing to get rid of. So I like the white background. That being said, if you want to use a green background and put in white later, your white is going to be crisp and clean and flat. Like you're going to have one solid white. So there's pluses and minuses. Depends what you want to do.
That's what I kind of wanted to get into, because I don't think everybody, if you never shot a video, you probably don't, like, that white that we showed at the beginning was not removed. That wasn't color removed. That was a solid color piece of paper in the background. So that's what I want to kind of get across was It wasn't as if we shot Guy in a green screen and then put white behind him. It's a white sheet of paper that is then lit up with lights to get that effect. And
I would even tell you just... Yeah, I was gonna say, even as a behind the scenes note, I'm 95% sure, if I recall this particular video, it was a few years ago, the light is behind his back, aiming at the wall. So it's not above to the side. It's directly behind him, shooting at the wall. So that's why it almost gives him kind of a glow too. But it was one light against the wall, and then we lit him from the front as well, which you can see in his glasses.
So I think this is really interesting. I think what I would be asking a question is what aesthetic look are you going for here? Because green screen is going to have one look, and there's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with green screen, but I feel like you need to have a good purpose for green screen. And even with this kind of white, plain, I think we've referred to it internally as the Apple aesthetic. It says something very different than having a background behind you. And I think you should really think about, is this what we're trying to portray? Does this fit with our brand?
Right.
And so either one can work, but in either case, you're also adding a lot of complications to your production setup. And so before like I were to answer green or white, I think there's a whole bunch of other questions you need to answer to make that decision a good one. And I think, going with that and just knowing that like you're going to, I don't want to say double your time because I don't know, but you're going to have to add gear. You're going to have to add production time, and then you're probably going to have to deal with some of it in post-production to make sure, especially, green screen, you're going to have to do that in post-production. Even with here, my guess is there may have been some cleanup that needed to happen to, on those edges as it gets darker from the light or whatever, just to make sure he looks good. So it's a good question. I think it's one we can ask ourselves as you're moving through production. I just think there's a lot of other questions you need to answer before you get to that particular question, at least. Any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, green screen, I like that you said green screen should be used for a purpose. Like, what is if you're trying to put your subject in a different location, that makes sense. That's what green screen is typically used for. You probably, hopefully, have more advanced skills than just replacing the background, because now you've got a lot more in place with like matching the subject to the location. So I really think sometimes people think that green screen is a cool effect, and it is. But careful how you use it. And I would agree with Matt when you said like this is its own aesthetic. This kind of person on a white background. They don't feel like they're anywhere. They're out in space, floating, instead of I don't know, in front of a park or something, or in an office. Or he doesn't feel like he's anywhere. He feels like he's floating out in space. And so I think that definitely changes kind of the point of the video, or as you said, the aesthetic.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's move on to our next question because we got a lot of these questions. Where is a good place to get music? Music, we all love it. Where should we go?
There's lots of places you can go to get music. So I always start with paid music. First of all, where should you go to get licensed? Royalty-free music, either licensed or royalty-free. Those are two different things. Royalty-free means you don't have to pay someone to use this music. It's out there for use. It doesn't necessarily mean free royalty-free, but you don't have to pay every time you use it. As far as licensed music, that is paying to use the song. It can be, $50 to hundreds to thousands of dollars. You can find, places like we use Atomica Music. We use our own internal, TechSmith asset library for Camtasia. You can find music on there. The premiumbeat.com has music. There's all sorts of sites. The Music Bed, Triple Scoop Music. There's tons of them out there, but they're not free. And so I think if you're asking where can I find free music, the first place I'd tell you is, of course, TechSmith's asset library has some free songs available. With every service, though, you get what you pay for. So if you want the free songs, you'll find stuff. You're going to have to search harder to find it. And it's going to be a time commitment to find it. But if you pay a little bit more for royalty-free or for licensed music, you're going to be happier with your selection. And it's a load off your mind, hopefully, knowing that you're not going to get pinched for using copyrighted music.
Yeah, there's places definitely you can get free music, but they're going to come even with attribution requirements. YouTube has some, but it tells you whether or not you need attribution. Kevin McLeod is someone who has a lot of music available. Again, it's free, but he expects and asks for attribution, and we want to be careful and we want to be respectful of that. I think so. It's always an interesting question about, because I get this question a lot, and there's lots of places you can get music. But we can only advocate that, make sure you're doing it within the boundaries that have been set for that music. So be very careful because, in fact, I know that, and this is a very different service and I don't do a lot, but Twitch sent out a big notification telling people that they were going to start taking people down, pulling people's accounts down for copyright violations. And so you just got to be really thoughtful. No one wants to be on the other end of that. So it's, we all want to be cheap because we don't have big budgets. I get it. I understand. But it really can be challenging, and so oftentimes, Andy, you mentioned Atomic Music. Something like those services or TechSmith assets are great because you do, even if it's not maybe the highest quality, like you're getting like a BMI music catalog or something like that.
Right.
You're getting a lot of options, and that's something I love about the TechSmith assets is I may not find exactly what I'm looking for, but I'm going to find something really close.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think I was going to say, if I'm not mistaken, so even with like the videos we've done for the YouTube series, we're pulling the same track through those, right? Like we're not picking a new music track every time we do those. And so I think that's another thing to kind of think about too is if you invest just a little, maybe even a decent amount of money on one really good track that you're going to pull through a whole bunch of videos, that cost goes way down. So you don't always have to like, oh man, I've got to find a new music track for every single video I'm creating.
Yeah. Maybe you're a freelancer too, and you're just starting to kind of dip your toes into video creation for clients. Build that into the price. Like if you know that you are going to create this professional piece and you're getting paid for it, build the cost of music into your price. And you can research this in advance. I did weddings. I don't know if I've mentioned that once or twice. I did weddings for 10 years, and I had a licensing agreement with a company, and I made sure that cost was covered by each wedding that I did. It's not a huge cost. I think it was like $50 to $100 per wedding to make sure that I covered my licensing. But that way I knew that they could use their video. They could post it on Facebook and on YouTube, and no one was going to pull it down because we had the license for it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. All right, let's keep moving here because we got a lot of questions. Can you slow down? You went too fast. Andy, you've never heard this comment before, have you?
Not once. I'm so methodical and well-paced, you guys. I don't like to go fast at all. Oh my gosh, this is one of the most common things that gets left on my videos on YouTube that I do for TechSmith and fast. In fact, as you can hear, I'm going so fast, I'm tripping over my own words. And even when I'm scripted, I tend to speak at a rather speedy cadence. It's just who I am. I've tried to slow down. I really, really have. I continue to try to slow down. But I would say for tutorials, you need to slow down. You have to go slower. People are learning from what you're doing. For educational videos, for entertainment videos, for something that you're doing for fun, you probably don't need to slow down as much. But if you speak so fast that people can't understand what you're saying, then it's not going to be of value to anybody. And the last thing I want to add to this is most video players have a little gear icon. So if the video is really good, you're enjoying watching it, but the speaker is just going too fast, slow them down. You can go down to 0.75% speed, down to half speed. You can double it if they're too slow. Same is true if they're too slow. You can double it or watch it 1.5 times speed. Our our VP of marketing sends out these share out videos all the time and says, make sure to watch it 1.5 speed. So yeah, please, as a viewer, choose your speed, but as a presenter, also, you want to try and slow down. I'm still trying, guys. I really am.
So it raises a question. So if I have to default to, and Andy, so I appreciate that you're trying to slow down, but like, if I have control, should I make a slower video and pace it slower, or should I make a faster video? Because for me, I think default, try to go slower because the speed up is way better than the slow down. I know what I sound like when my videos are slowed down. Let's just say sound like I've had a few too many, which may not be helpful when you're trying to learn something. So,
right.
This is such an important thing, and we appreciate the feedback, right? I think that's one of the key things here. It's really good feedback for us, but there is something to be said about finding the right pace for what you're trying to accomplish. A marketing video will probably have a very different pace than an instructional video. An instructional video that has complexity, and maybe a lot of motion or a lot of things that are happening, like tasks, like you're going to do this, you're going to click here, you're going to do this, probably needs to be slower than if I'm just explaining a concept. And I think understanding kind of how to use pacing, and my other thing I'd say is like looking at how you can ebb and flow in one video. And practice, right? And that's what you're doing, Andy. Every time you make a video, you're practicing. And without that practice, you're going to just kind of, because I know I'm a fast speaker too. I just miss words. I don't stumble them. I just miss them. But what happens with practice is you're going to be able to get very deliberate. And if you really struggle with it, this is where, there's places you can go, like Toastmasters can help you learning, asking someone to give you feedback in the moment. Like, I couldn't understand you. That was too fast. Or I think, Andy, you and one of our other video producers had a sign, slow down, when we were in the studio sometimes. So, you got to just have those kind of keys and cues, but practice, because it's really important. Justin, you ever speak too fast?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I speak rapid speed all the time, and I never stop. Yeah. No, I think to me it comes back to like public speaking and public speaking practice. I had to take several courses in public speaking when I was going through college, and I think that was one of the things that was kind of harped on as a public speaker. And now we're all kind of public speaking, even in this sense of doing podcasts and videos. But I think part of it is understanding, and I like that you said practice, because that's what I was going to say, is when you understand the material and you feel like you can communicate it effectively and you've practiced it and you understand how you want that you should practice the delivery and be able to actually show that you're not trying to rush through the material. You're not trying to get to the next point. You kind of really good public speakers have like their pauses down. They know when it's sort of like stand-up comedy. I really like stand-up comedy. And you just know, like, they know when to hit a certain point and then when to stop and when to come back in. And I think when you know your script or your outline and you feel confident in what you're doing and what you're trying to say, you feel less pressure to try to like get to the next point and get to the next point.
Yeah. There's one last point I want to make about this too. And it's one of the recent comments I got on YouTube, which really helped me think, oh man, I do need to slow down, is someone just left a comment that said, not all of your viewers are English as their first language, so please slow down. And that was a really impactful one for me to realize, like, oh yeah, like YouTube is an international platform. I don't have say on who's listening, and how helpful am I to someone who doesn't speak English if I'm flying through it or doesn't natively speak it. So that's another reason to kind of encourage slowing down. Plus, if I speed up and then try and slow down the video later, my slurs don't magically become unslurred. Now it's just slurred a little slower. So,
well, and I think with that, Andy, even with native language speakers, there's a level of expertise, right? If my expertise is low and I'm new to a subject, I need anyone that is an expert that's talking about to slow down, because I'm starting to, I might not understand vocabulary words or just even though I might be a native language speaker, you might be using things that make it harder for me just to process it. So I think there's lots of reasons to slow down. I think there is there's a lower limit though. You can get too slow. Although, just real quick anecdote, our certification and the lovely person that we work with, Daniel Park, who helps create that certification program with us, he is a very deliberate, methodical speaker. And internally, there's some conversation like, well, these are really slow videos. And I remember having to review like 30, 40 videos and being like, these go taking forever to review. However, it's awesome. We hear so many great things about those, because if you're really learning, you're really trying to understand, especially like software or something like that, it makes it so much easier to follow along, to act with, to do those things. And as an advanced I have an advanced understanding of Camtasia. I put his into 2x speed. I was like, oh, this is really understandable. So I do think there's kind of a lower limit, but like, again, understanding your audience, understanding where they're at, understanding what they're trying to do during your video would be the same thing with anything I try to fix around my house, right? Like, if I don't know that process, please go slow, because I can't follow along as I'm trying to turn I have to. It's frustrating to have to pause, but I will, or I'll go find another video if you're going too fast. So, anyway, we probably killed that one. But let's get to the next one. This is a little bit more how-to one. How do you create a talking head in a circle? So this is something, I think people have seen in our videos. You got in the lower part, you can, instead of having full screen or a square, if you want a circle, how do we do this?
Yeah. So I can show you again. Here's a guy in Camtasia. There's a couple of ways that we can do it. Mac users have had an effect for a long time, but I know not all of our users are Mac users, but Mac users have this mask effect. You can just very quickly throw that onto your video layer and expand the circle and hold shift, of course, otherwise it won't be a full circle anymore. And that's a mask, but that only helps Mac users. So I'm going to undo that and go back. We have a new effect in Camtasia 2021 that I love called Media Matte. But to use Media Matte, you need to pick your shape first. So I'm going to go and find a circle. I've got this yellow one here that I like, and I'm going to put it over what I want to show. Actually, it feels backwards because the circle's actually going to cover up what I want to show. But I've got, head and shoulder shot here, and that's good for now. I can adjust it later. Go into Visual Effects, grab that Media Matte. It is drag and drop onto the circle. Woo. And there's Guy again. It's super easy to use. If you want to put something behind him now, because now we obviously have this black space behind him, I can go into my library of footage and maybe grab this blue animation, raise these two things up a level, or even group them if I wanted to, and just slide that in behind him. I am going to group them because I want to change them together, and I'm going to shrink this down so that guy is in just the bottom right corner. Oops, I did hold shift. So sometimes shift bites you. So the nice thing is Camtasia helps so that it doesn't skew when you shrink it down here. Annotations and shapes, you have to hold shift. Most other objects, you just change the size and it holds its aspect ratio.
Yeah. I mean, how
so there
easy
you go.
is that?
It's so much easier than most other editors that I've even used. This is basically a compositing application, which compositing is a whole other tool in video. Most people would think of After Effects when they think of compositing. You can do it in Premiere. You can do it in Final Cut. It's called masking, where you kind of take a shape and then attach that shape to a layer, and anything not within the shape disappears. Camtasia makes it drag and drop easy, which is kind of one of the things I love about this release, is like these super complicated things years ago that were hard to figure out are just that easy to do. So that's how you do it now.
So yeah, and so you can give like a presentation, record your presentation slides and yourself at the same time giving it, and then afterward you're just saying throw the mask on the track where your webcam's at, essentially.
Absolutely. And you know what I do is if I go back into that group, it doesn't have to be a circle, right? I've got a circle, but maybe I want it to be a star shape or an octagon. You can just change whatever shape it is right here in the themes. You can bring in your own shapes, whatever you want, and make it that way. So yeah, it's if you record your if you're using Camtasia and you record your sources separately, like it does, you've got your webcam footage and your presentation. You haven't lost anything, by recording it in a rectangle. You kind of need to, and then afterwards throw your circle, your square, your star on top. So, yeah,
and I think that's
super stars again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's the other stars again. I think that's the other thing that with this that's cool too, is you can remove that in Camtasia if there's a slide where you want to just focus on the slide or the part of the screen, and then you can bring that back in later. It doesn't have to constantly stick at the bottom of your screen.
All I'm doing down here in the bottom left-hand corner, I know it's hard to see, there's a little eyeball on track 2, and if I turn that eyeball off, like shut the eye, it closes the whole star layer, which is where my media mat is. So it's not even affecting Guy's video layer. It's only affecting the shape. So I can turn it on and off. I can also do that. We have like 3 ways you can do everything. You can also do that up here. Oh, I've lied to my, there it is down there. Sorry. Media mat down here. There's a new toggle in Camtasia 2021. I can turn it off and back on. And so that actually only affects the effect. So the star is still there, but it takes the effect on and off. So
yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And really a nice way to just, again, you're adding a little polish to when you're doing especially presentations or something where you got screen content, but you still want to be visible. So yeah. Thanks, Andy, for showing us that. That's a great one. Let's move on to our next question. It says, I noticed that the image was very good of you three. What kind of lighting did you use? Anything professional? So we have a whole episode. If you missed it, we talk about lighting, but let's talk about that again, because I think it's lighting is one of those things I don't think we can talk enough about, because it's got a lot of nuance to it, a lot of challenges. So Justin, you want to talk about your lighting?
Sure. Yeah. I'm, as far as like anything professional, no. I don't have a very super professional setup. I will say my setup is pretty basic. So like you said, we've talked through this, and I talked through my setup a little bit in a previous episode, but just for you all who are watching. So for me, I'm sitting in front of a basement window. So the window's up here, so I get any natural light that's coming in. And then I have a desk lamp over here. And then I also have a Lume Cube over here, which is just a peripheral light that is just sits on my actual desktop, or my actual desk over here. And so what that allows me to do is, in a very small space, because I'm up against a wall, to get more light coming on to me. So for instance, you can see some of the difference here. So this is if I take the Lume Cube off, so you can see that shadow comes, and this is if I take the desk lamp off. Of course, now it doesn't want to actually turn off, but that's how it goes. But yeah, it's just, it adds a little bit of light in back onto the screen, and so I'll pop that back on. But yeah, that's all I use. I just use like a cheap $10 Target lamp, and then the Lume Cube was, I think, under $100, and it gives a pretty good setup for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy, what about you?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm also gonna comment on Justin's camera quality too, because I know you're using your cell phone, and it looks great. Like I'm always impressed by like that's a cell phone with a lamp next to it, and it looks fantastic. So yeah, you don't have to go out and buy something ridiculous if you can get it in the right setup. The lamp behind you doesn't hurt either. Um, so I am currently my own lighting is my least favorite among the three of us. That maybe that's personal preference, but I was telling the guys beforehand when we saw this question came up. I think part of it could also be the beige wall behind me. It's a beige wall, so there's only so much you can light it up. It's still going to be beige. But I have a ring light on the camera that I'm using. So they've got a circle ring light just in front of me, and then currently, and I change this light daily depending on how I want it to be used. I have a little Felix video light, and it's actually bouncing off of my ceiling right now. I was using it as a backdrop light before, but it's bouncing off the white ceiling, which just kind of illuminates the room a little bit. Doesn't really leave harsh shadows on me. The ring light leaves a harsh shadow. You can see which side is it? It's this side. Behind my chair, you can see my chair's shadow on the wall from the ring light. So I don't love that. Sometimes I'll take the other light and aim it at the same wall to cut down on the shadows. But just two lights for me, and the window, I guess, next to me sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's not a lot. You don't have to go out and buy ring lights. You can find them super affordable if you want. For me, I probably have I don't know the most investment into the lighting, but I have 2 LED panels, and that's really it though. Just 2 panels. They're set to they're only set to about 20% of brightness, and they're set at 5,000 kelvins, which is kind of a daylight temperature. I do have a window, but I block off as much of that light as I can. But these LED panels, spend about $250. You can get similar ones cheaper. You can spend a lot more on LED panels, and I really like them. I've got them hooked into my home automation system, so I can turn them on with voice command, which is actually probably one of the best things I've done, because then I don't have to get up and fiddle with them trying to turn them on and stuff. But it's pretty straightforward. I think the other thing that probably helps is I've got a big monitor right over here that also does give me a little bit of light that if you go back and watch that previous episode, you can see like if you change the color, you can really adjust the way your look is. But I think one thing that's true for Justin and myself, and Andy, maybe this is what you need to look into, I think is really, really helpful, is having something in the background.
Yes.
Just to give you some separation. Like I think Justin, I'll bring you up just because so people can see that are watching the video. The light in the background looks really, really nice. It just gives it a nice kind of accent. I know I get a lot of compliments on my lights back here. They're called Nano Leaf. Yeah. They're the hexagon shapes, and I can do all sorts of things with them I don't ever do here. But it just seems to make a difference to give some that separation, and you can see I'm not too far from them. But I think when you're doing your lighting, it's just about finding the right composition. Like how much shadow do you want? So you can adjust the brightness on your lamps, and even just providing a little bit of light goes a long way. And ideally color matched. And Justin, are your lamps color matched? The lamp in your Lume Cube?
They're pretty close. Like the Lume Cube, I have a whiter and again I can color adjust the actual camera as well. So but they're like warmer. Like I've talked about in other ones, like if I didn't have like color correction on that was coming out of my camera, like it would look like I was in some sort of like sun, it just is like so warm. It's like an orange hue down here in this basement otherwise. But yeah, the one thing I'll say too, though, I was monkeying with this the other day. I went back, and because like Matt had said, like I'm using my iPhone as my camera, and we've talked about this a bunch of different times, but I think it's worth repeating. Lights make such a big difference with your actual camera. So I went back and was monkeying with my old Logitech webcam the other day, and it was amazing. And it wasn't perfect, but it was amazing how much better it looked when I threw on the 2 lights that are in front of me and moved myself in front of the window than when they were off, because the camera just couldn't grab it. There was not enough there within that camera settings to be able to pull enough light into the lens to show me off. I was super grainy and super dark. And so I think that's where, and we've talked about this in terms of like what to do with process of lights and cameras and all that type of stuff, but definitely like invest a little bit of money in lighting before you dive into the other stuff.
Yeah.
After the microphone, of course.
Yes,
microphone,
after, yeah. Number
lighting.
Yeah.
Camera. Well,
We have a whole
gentlemen,
episode on that.
We do. Well, we're actually out of time, and we've still got a few questions left that we can save for another episode that we'll do this again. So if you have questions, things that you want us to answer, send us an email, thevisuallounge@techsmith.com. And if that's too hard or something you don't want to do is email us, you got comments, you got places, you can reach out to us on Twitter. You can hit up the @TechSmith handle, or you can reach out to any of us on LinkedIn. We would be happy to take your questions and consider answering them on a future episode, because hopefully you found this helpful, something that we'd like to do. So with that said, it's kind of weird. Do we have final takes today? That's how we
final
end the show.
take. I got your final take right here.
All right.
Get comfortable asking people questions, because if you don't know, we might have the answers. And honestly, this is a lot easier than coming up with something on our own. So I love answering questions, video-related questions, lighting, camera. Honestly, it's fun to be able to answer these questions and know that you're helping somebody kind of step up their game a little bit. So yeah, bring your questions. We'd love to hear them.
Justin, what about you? Anything you got final wrap up to say?
Same. We love your questions. We are, I know a lot of people say we're here for you. We are here for you. So if you have questions, dude, send us an email, hit us up on social media. We will absolutely answer your questions to the best of our ability. We might make a whole video in this series based on your question that you might have. So honestly, feel free to send them in. We would love to have them.
Yeah, so that's just about does it for us. We've already said enough about having your questions sent in, but I just want to remind you, if you have feedback, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate us, let us know. And now, with all feedback, we take it, we read it, we process it, we do what we can with it if there's something that we can do. But we'd love to hear what you think. If there's things that you think that would allow us to help you better, we want to know about it. So thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode of the Visual Lounge. We'll be back next time with more video workflow content. So we'll see you then.